Kashmir has a very special place in my heart. It's difficult to describe because words won't do justice to what you feel. I come back to Kashmir at the age of 56 feeling like I was born yesterday. And I bring with me my artisans and I said, let's create magic. Let's recreate Kashmir the way nobody has seen it. Janavi believes a lot in using natural elements. The color of nature really does inspire me. These beautiful flowers, lilies, the beautiful Nagin lake, just beautiful Mother Nature. I'm all about color because I just think life should be colorful and everything I see around me shows me color. That, I think, has been the basis of my creativity. Today, sitting in Kashmir, the only thing I see around myself when I shut my eyes is color. Janavi started 21 years ago. We are this little company nestled in Noida, born out of pure passion. And I think that's what drives me. Going back to how I work with our karigars, there's a great connect between me and them because when I started, I would just give them an idea. I would give them an image, I would give them a thing to think about, and we would draw literally straight on my canvas, which was a shawl. Each piece was a masterpiece. They just created. It was like an artist creating a piece of art. Each shawl has a special story, and each story has a lot of love in them. My paint box is my box of colors. It's my box of 12 palettes, and each palette tells a different story. And each story is there to unfold a different adventure, a different journey, a different collection. So it's our cashmere paint box. I call it a paint box because I love painting. But it's actually 21 colors with each collection. And of course, we're already here in Kashmir, so we have our lovely Kashmir palette, which is beautiful, beautiful mix of colors. I'm at an age where I think I need to enjoy our journey from here. It's been 21 years of a lot of hard work, and hard work is good, but now I want to enjoy the journey. I see a Janavi shawl really connecting the universe and the world. I think we're ready to take the world by storm.
So in all good design thinking, there are always two opposing forces at play. The first is to imbibe all the available vernacular knowledge, and the second is to sprinkle it with one's own individual experiences. If you think about that wonderful, versatile object that we call a sari, it's highly evolved. It's an extremely simple thing, a beautifully proportioned piece of fabric that can be made from a variety of materials, print, embroidered, can be worn in a variety of styles, and also it lasts a really long time. No one can design a sari in a single generation. But the question that our panel will try and answer today is this. When faced with a collective tradition as wide, as deep as that of our subcontinent, is there space for the designer to sprinkle meaning while preserving craft? What is the vision that drives Indian design today across art, across culture, fashion, product, and of course, interiors? So what we're going to do is, I'm going to request all my three esteemed panelists to first share their own journeys, their own individual stories, because they all come from different disciplines of design, art, and craft. And they've taken that evolution has happened in their own lives. So I would first request them to show us a little bit of their work, tell us their journeys, and then we'll all come back to the stage and then come to the dialogue. So we'll start with Malavika. And thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the introduction, Tanya. So Vastrakala is a 30-year-old research-led hand embroidery company that's based in Chennai. Not at all what one is used to hearing. When thinks of embroidery, one thinks of, North India and the big centers of embroidery. We're a very discreet company that employs more than 300 craftspeople who are full-time employees. We are also an Indo-French company. This double identity has been part of who we are right from inception. And it's something that we're going to come back to during the course of this conversation today. And the very interesting questions that we've been discussing for today. I'd like to focus on the fact that Vastrakala has been, we've been working for 30 years. We started out with our focus on work for interiors. The principal founder, Jean-François Lesage, has a background actually started out to be an auctioneer and rediscovered embroidery in India, fell in love with the country and decided to make this also his home. Because of his passion for the decorative arts, our initial years were focused on works for interiors with decorators, architects, museums, public institutions, and private collectors. After a few years, we also started working on fashion, but I will not be speaking about it today because I think it's very interesting that in this context, we can talk about our work in the field of interiors. I'll start straight away by illustrating some of our projects, which maybe not everyone gets an opportunity to see and may not know really what can one do with embroideries for interiors. The first focuses are a few historical projects. I'm going to go through this rather quickly. It's just to give you a background as to who we are and what our identity is. And for this audience who may not know that embroideries from India have reached, I'm going to say, the highest of places when it comes to design, heritage. These are world-class institutions, and these embroideries come from India. The Castle of Vaux-le-Vicomte is one of the privately owned castles in France. We were asked to redo the entire bed of the King's Louis XIV's bedroom. This conception, this entire conception, along with what we did for, you'll see in close-ups for it, along with what we did in the same castle, Madame Fouquet's bedroom, which was a complete tapestry work, really represents a lot of the historical work that we've been involved with. This, for example, had entire bed panels. Some of them remained and the rest were gone. And we had to recreate, keeping in mind that we had to reuse what was already existent. There 63 shades of thread, woolen threads and silk threads had to be used in this project. And this is where I want to come back to what I said earlier. We are really a research-led embroidery company, which means that a lot of the work that we do involves going back into how these originally would have been made and trying to therefore find a way to restitute these embroideries and recreate what is missing for our clients. The 63 colors of threads obviously had to coalesce very well together and form something along with the antique piece to look like it had all been done at one time. These are challenges that we face as in terms of having to find things that would make it work. Then the Opera of Monte Carlo, we were asked to redo all that you see on the photograph on the right is when it was completed. So you can see that above the loggia, all the pelmets that you can see were after installing our embroideries. What you see on the left is the document that was given to us. This was the only surviving image of what that would have looked like originally. So we really had to zoom in. This is not a very great photo. We had to zoom in. You can see there the same loggia curtains and imagine what that would have been. And this means not just knowing what the shape of it could be, but how would it have been made? How was that embroidered? Surely, yes, in gold threads, you can imagine that this would have been made like that. But along with that, there's also the necessity to give it the right kind of relief, the right kind of shapes, so that this can also be viewed from a distance. Some close-up images of it, the craftsmen at work. The two projects that I've just shown you, each of them strangely represent 25,000 hours of work. And we'd made an interesting calculation. If one embroiderer had worked on it, it would have taken him, on working 5 working days, 8 hours a day, it would have taken one person 10 years to do. So these are amusing little things that we like to, and we did this, of course, in 3.5, 4 months each. Again, a historical project, but for a private collector who had one of the original thrones of Napoleon. Again, without, of course, the seat or without the embroideries, and wanted us to recreate it. On the right, you see what we've done. And so when I again come back to what I said about being a research-led embroidery company, so one had to go back to what one could find images of Napoleon in front of his throne. So there's already a research to know how do you find these things, right? And then this painting was there and showed, therefore, you can see a glimpse of what was there on his throne. And we had to recreate all of that. Again, in how it would have been done in that time. So one of the things that's very important for us is historical authenticity. And by that I mean that we want to be able to recreate it. It's important for Jean-François to say that I want to recreate it exactly as it would have been done for Napoleon when he was living, which means obviously that including the kind of, there's also a little bit of this gold thread, of course, including what we have as cardboard used underneath. All of that had to be absolutely identical to maintain this historical authenticity. Great source of pride for us is that we are in the Louvre Museum. So for an Indian atelier to have its embroideries at the Museum of Decorative Arts, part of the Louvre Museum, great moment for us and for all craftspeople from India. So this was a recreation of Jean Lanvin's bedroom. Please do, all of you go to Paris, go and see the period rooms at the Decorative Arts Museum. This is right there. Embroideries which were originally done by Rateau for Lanvin, which in the original, you can see that on the left-hand side there, was done by actually machine in the early part of the 20th century. And we had to recreate it by hand. And that was also amusing. It's also very interesting to see how these archives are maintained by other countries, the importance they attach to it. When this was brought from France to India, it was accompanied to the airport with security. That's how much importance they place on their archives. Just very quickly, but a glimpse, a personal point of pride to have been able to do Victor Hugo's restitution of his embroideries in the home in which he was exiled on Guernesey. He amused himself, apart from being a writer, of course, he amused himself by taking embroideries, Chinese embroideries, cutting them out and putting them, creating his own decor. And this had to be redone by us a few years ago. Peter Marino, whom you wouldn't necessarily associate with something very classical. Again, each of these had to be recreated, find the decor. This is what you call, it's like painting. So there is no base fabric that's visible at all. Everything is embroidered. Chateau Margaux in France, again, part of the historical projects that we've worked on. Then I come to India, where, a little bit more than 10 years ago, we were commissioned to do the state dining room of the Rashtrapati Bhavan. When we were brought into the project, and we are a company in Chennai. Knew nobody. Somebody proposed us to go and meet the committee that was going to ask us to work on this project. And we were there with other people who could also have been potentially bidding for this project. This was how the president, looked at the room and said, look, I don't want to receive my international guests today in this time of the year, past 2010, with these arms, traditional arms. So please propose a decor that'll suit this room. And that was the challenge for us. And here I'm showing you some of, just showing you the kind of work that we did for it. This project, which should have taken 2.5 years, we took 6 months to do this. And this is the room after. You can actually see, I think that I must be coming to the top of the pillar in terms of height. And that's the height at which these panels are at. So the kind of relief work that you have to give for it. Again, the importance of research. What do you propose for the Viceroy's building, the dome over India, the seat of, the President of India? So we had to come up with a decor and prove that this decor had meaning. So we went back to what inspired the architects of the Viceroy's house, which is Lutyens and Baker, and went back to what inspired them to building this, which meant we went back to Indian architecture and Indian decor to find something that would fit in. And that's why what you see there is that every flower, none of them are repeated. Everything is in really 3D, very thick work, and so that you could view it from the height below. What's very interesting is that when we finished this project, and it had to leave also the curtains and the pelmet from, taken from Agra. I'm sure, any of you would recognize this. What's very interesting is that when we finished these pieces, it had to be, there was a frame, a wooden, which also had this gold thread on it. And we realized we couldn't take it out of our building because the doors and windows were too small and these were huge. So we had to bring it out from the first floor by breaking a little portion of the roof, which fortunately there was one roof which was, sort of a temporary roof. And, overnight the truck was waiting down below, it had to leave for Delhi. And, these are all the very interesting things that happen where you come together as, the craftsmen find solutions and there's nothing that's impossible for them. They do that temporary break, we bring it down, gets into the truck and it's on its way. I'm also going to show you some of our contemporary projects. Chanel at the Rue Cambon. These curtains are done with Peter Marino. The Crillon Hotel with Aline Damon. The Crillon Hotel also with Tristan Auer. Just to tell you again the kind of decorators that we are working with. And Stylagos again. Another very interesting chapter for us is to work with contemporary interior decorators and I'm going to say furniture makers. So Pierre Jovanovic, something that we did with him, where he really wanted to replicate what would be the eye and the iris. That's something that you see here in detail. Another project where in 2018 he reimagined, these are chairs that he designed and he wanted to reimagine them with something more fun. And he imagined a sort of woodland and he wanted to have, as he started drawing, he started drawing faces with eyes and expressions, and some of them are funny and some of them have scowls, some are sneering, different expressions. And of course with that he wanted to express that in terms of embroidery. Again, our role in this is really a dialogue between Jean-François and the designer. And so the embroidery that you see here reflects that kind of woodland, how the light falls on sort of a mossy woodland. And then Jovanovic decided to give them names because they started to have, characters. And he went to French cinema and they were called the Mr. Oops chair were named Gérard after Gérard Depardieu. And the Mrs. Oops chair were named Catherine after Catherine Deneuve. Again, another designer, Hubert Le Gall, an incredible project that we did for him, which he showcased at Villa Querilos in the south of France. Furnitures that we do with him. This is a fantastic bird, day and night. These are Maxu chairs for him. All that you see in outline is embroidered. So there's a dialogue between a designer, a furniture maker, and us in terms of what do you want to show. And what's very interesting is, and this was talked about a little bit yesterday when Ambrish Arora said that in his project in Bihar or Orissa, how they let go at some point and allowed the artisan to take over. And what is very interesting for us is when we work with architects, is the confidence they have in us to be able to really interpret something and let us actually have fun. We go with what they say, but there is some element that we bring to this, which is an exchange between two creative people. The Burulex, which was for wallpaper and in Milan, shown a few years ago. This is an exceptional piece where we recreated a panther, which was inspired by what Jean-François's father, François Lesage, and the House of Lesage created for Jean-Louis Scherrer, very famous dress, where you have the panther head on the top of the dress. And we recreated this, which is part of the private collection of Christian Louboutin in 2020. I don't know how to zoom it in here, but there's, everything is really reflecting literally the skin and the hairs of the animal. So, going on to working with contemporary designers, this is a sort of, again, for the south of France, a very famous design parade with two young designers where they recreated a sort of ambience of being like a tarot room. So this was the salon of a tarot lady called Mrs. Crystal. And Mrs. Crystal was obviously looking in a crystal ball to tell you your future. So the interpretation of all of this in the language of embroidery. And recently, very recently, we showed this again this year at Toulon, which is called the Room 100, which was with the same designers. Because in 2024, we also celebrated, as I was telling you earlier, we have a double identity, and the House of Lesage celebrated its 100 years in France. We are a different chapter, but part of the same family. So we worked on that previous image for this 100 years of Lesage, and with, it's very nice that the Invisible Collection is here because we worked with Marion Stora. Just 2-3 weeks ago, this was shown at the Paris Design Week. And Marion Stora, inspired by Cocteau's design of what you call the kiss, the baisers, the kiss bed. And that was, this was inspired by that, and these embroideries were done by us for this bed. Leaving you with a few images of what Vastrakala is today. We've always been and we'll talk about it again later, in South India, in Madras, in Chennai. Very little known about craft communities who live there. Our craftsmen are not coming from UP and West Bengal. They are Tamilian craftsmen who live in the villages, and last year, a few years ago, we built an atelier right in the midst of their villages. And even from the very beginning, they always went home at the end of the day. So for example, when COVID happened, they were not migrating back. They just went home every day like they did all these 30 years of our practice. What's very nice in being back closer to their homes is that now we have 1/3 of our embroiderers are women, and that's really fantastic. I'll leave you with the last image of Vastrakala. Vastrakala is really, like I said, it's very, we're trying to give it, as much as this is very modern, it's inspired by the industrial architecture, but set in the setting is very village-like. The setting is to show that the greenery, and you will see our craftsmen normally lying in these verandas on the tea break. they're lying there with their heads and, dreaming or having their coffee or sitting and talking to each other. We really wanted to recreate the village atmosphere. And I think that this is, very nice that we've been able to do that. Thank you very much.
So I'm Shama Pawar. I'm the founder of the Kishkinda Trust. And I moved to Hampi. And when I went there about 35 years ago, the first time, it really was the nature that really took my breath away. I mean, so I was fascinated by that fact that there was such incredible nature. And then there were these incredible, like the whole ruined city for miles together. But it felt like there were no scars left, and I was very intrigued by that. And I traveled a lot to the West since I was very young, and I used to go to France quite a lot, and that's where I kind of realized at a very early age that what my country had was somehow lost in, like it was not celebrated enough. And I'm an artist, and it became my obsession to see how I can work without any scars somewhere. And this is actually one of these, this is the river Tungabhadra, and this is what, this is one of my favorite mantapas. And I just, when you see it, like it just fits in there without any effort. And I was fascinated by that, and I basically started my journey 30 years ago in this incredible landscape where it's timeless. The boulders and everything, they are actually for any design or creative person are the most inspiring, and they don't have, like there's nothing predictable about it, and they give you, even if you think that it's just boulders and something, when you move into that area, when you experience it, it's something that it's very different every time, and that is something that a scale and a form can create. And of course the material, which has been, sitting there for ages, for almost 4 billion years. And then there is this irrigation system, which basically is from the 14th century, which gives really like a boost to whatever you can grow, the soil there, which is really fertile. And, I mean, we are surrounded by mines also in that area. We have the iron mines over there, iron ore mines. And so for me, it became again something that, do I want to touch a natural resource which is physically there, And one time I had met somebody really interesting, and one day she said, oh, the problem of Karnataka's housing is sorted because there's so much raw material. So when you look at something like this, it really shocked me because I thought she was an educationist and everything. I said, my God, why are we looking at resources like this as commodities? And so that when I moved there in 35 years ago, I basically wanted to work with materials that are growing over there. And I started 30 years when I moved over there, and it was a pure accident. Somebody wanted to do something with banana fiber, and because banana grows over there, and then it kind of converted into a whole lot of things that I do, whether it is a banana fiber cottage industry that we have some 700 women we have trained, 300 women are working, and I think beyond the Kishkinda Trust, there are almost more than 1,000 women who are copying us and working, and I'm really delighted that because it was created for that, it is not for our benefit. And today we have actually handed over the cottage industry to the women, to the artisans, what we started. So I don't work with anything traditional. Only thing that I believe that every tradition or every heritage basically begins somewhere. And today the banana fiber cottage industry is considered heritage of Hampi. So I feel pretty proud about that. Yeah, so my experiment with what grows over there in the region has not stopped, and I continue to work with those things with our communities. And this is something that, so when you look at something, I like to look at it holistically. I really believe that great food and way of life is what life is about, and that you must surround yourself by beauty and aesthetics. And I think Hampi is one of those places which is incredible, and I don't think many places match that. So I got it, like I'm very interested in planning and mapping, and it's my obsession. And I really feel that design for development is necessary in India you know, so all the crafts and everything that I do are basically small steps towards a bigger picture. But sometimes I feel, is it getting too late? Because, you know, we are losing our heritage very fast. So how can we be conscious and yet be informed and take informed decisions and be inspired by the past, and how do you go into the future? So when you want to, you know, look at something, if you look at it in isolation, it's not going to do what it requires for a destination or a nation as India. And this is my little bit, if you see the blue dotted line, it's the river Tungabhadra, and below is all the monuments of Hampi, which are very famous. So this is something that, you know, some years, like a couple of years ago, our journey began like from creating the crafts that we did for, you know, baskets and handbags and things like that. We also were asked to do something, and so everything actually, whether it is creating the raw material, creating a skill, creating a product, everything I start from scratch, because first of all, I'm an artist, I'm not a designer, but design is a big part of my life. And I kind of play around with something and create a product, and then I want to give it to the community to practice and benefit from. So these are like what you saw in the back was actually the a mix of many fibers with banana fiber, cotton, gongura and things like this. And this is with water hyacinth and cotton and banana fiber. So actually, like when you look at banana fiber, like water hyacinth for example, all these some years we've been working with it from creating a craft, but now I don't have slides of that. But yeah, so there's always a possibility. I just feel that when there's an intention to work with something, there are large possibilities, and there is a lot that you can do. So this is the black pottery that I started working with about 3 years ago, and because I have been using my black pottery since 30 years, and it's just really simple, and I think it's my favorite thing. And you know, when we created this, it has got some corn flowers, created my village daughter, and you know, textile that was woven somewhere, you know, things like that. Just trying to work with them, and then you realize that on the ground there is so much to nurture, and there are, I mean, people are really like, I feel that people in India in rural areas are really hungry for that guidance and inputs. There have never been, at least I have never experienced when I go there to kind of learn something from them and work with them, I never find any resistance. And I think it is partly because I don't work with many traditionally strong powerhouses of a traditional craft, you know, which is the artisan. And here I work with things which are really very, so this is something with water hyacinth again that we created, really something simple, but I've been working on what I call growing of heritage resources, because I am against, quarrying something, taking directly from nature. I believe in nurturing the nature and creating that, and this is something with simple thing that we created with water hyacinth. These are my experiments from my studio, so today I'm pretty much sharing that. I'm not sharing anything like in product or something. So I also work with architecture, and I've been doing a lot of adaptive reuse of village houses. So for me, what are the resources available locally are important, whether it is architecture, whether it is a public space, whether it is a farm, whether it's, and of course community, you know. So I've been working with that, and I think we get beautiful responses. But you know, we don't look, when we look at a village, I mean, like actually Hampi is great for its heritage, and that's all people see it as a past, you know. So they don't see it as a future, and I've been like just playing with that, of how we can take our past into the future in an inspiring way, in a being very kind of sensitive to its cultural ethos, at the same time make sense in contemporary life, you know, because otherwise it will not live, and that it will not have any meaning in the future. So these are like some of the things that we did with our local materials and local carpenters and painting and whatever. So it's just trying to see how, I mean, this is actually in a village house, and that I've adapted, you know, I just thought it was interesting because we used some things that are very kind of urban in a way. Then I work with public spaces, and to again, like this was just full of rubble actually, and then we created this, and we've had beautiful markets and events and everything. And so we create public spaces that are really very close to its physical qualities and with very little footprint and using whatever we have. So even when I work with that, it's a similar thing. This is a very interesting thing, you know, because I work with really grassroots community, and very often we are forced into doing something with the government because we have to do it. And what happens typically, you know, they give you a claustrophobic space, and you know, I mean, I just can't deal with that. So when I saw this thing space, and I was like, I could not breathe in this incredible landscape. So everybody else has had those holes in the wall, but we just opened it up and we allowed the landscape to flow in. And then within 3 hours with my artisans, we put this together completely spontaneously. And I think that is the actual, the power of creativity that can create something which is really beautiful. And no, I mean, so I think that design really plays a huge role. And I think it needs to reach every corner. I think it's about conscious design and conscious intervention and local materials and what we can do with it. So I was very happy with this thing. And of course, government didn't, they think it just looked like a hut or something. They were not very appreciative. But all of our community was thrilled with it. Then recently, we created this piece, which was the largest thing that we ever created, which was about 27 by 9 feet. It's a pretty big deal for us. And at the Hyatt, in Bellary, we created this. And it was with 27 artisans, because we had a short time, and 27 artisans, 27 days. And it was 27 feet by 9 feet. And it was incredible, you know, like the kind of energy that actually, I don't have, like, because I know that I have a short time, I didn't have many pictures of the community, how thrilled they were and how they were coming so early to work and didn't want to even leave, you know. So I think creativity, this is something that I just thought was funny, because I work with performing arts and children. And I really feel that everything that whenever you work with children and make them sensitive and understand where they belong, I think that really makes, I mean, I started working with education of performing arts in '98, and we've always celebrated things really beautifully without any backdrops, without any synthetic things. We don't have flex, we are a zero plastic organization and stuff like this. And and then, you know, and I think that the children have to realize, I think the next generations need to be kind of looked into a experience, which is a design experience, which is a physical experience, about the aesthetic experience. And I think that takes you somewhere really far, because I've seen the generations that I've worked with now. I've been there for 30 years, so you know, from starting with nothing to what we have today. We have a community of 1,000 or more people and communities. And this is a little stage at my center called Cultural Industries Center. And I work a lot with, you know, interns and designers and things like this. So I think to bridge the gap between the artisans and our community, and certain informed things about design, and sharing that and getting excited about, like, they said, Amma aapne jhadu laya hai, ye kya kar raha hai karke, you know. So, you know, but how it can go to the next level, and what the natural fiber means to them. And I think to create that, and sort of an institution to create that awareness, I think those centers are very important for India. And this is something that we created recently. It was shown at the 47A. And this is my small team. And I think that I think this is the end of my slideshow. And this is just to share what I do. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I know we're running really late. A Lesage is not a 25-minute show. It's maybe a 2-hour show. Malavika, that was absolutely amazing. Shama, unreal. She's an amazing powerhouse, and not just being who she is, as, you know, I would say quiet in her whole demeanor. She is absolutely amazing designer herself. Now for me. I don't know whether I have even a minute left, because I know we're running really late in this session, and I would like to concise my story. You already saw a little bit in the beginning. I am 61 years of age today. I feel I'm 6. That's as old as my grandson. And lovely Ashti Bhartiya, who is the lady behind this entire, I would say, show. and everybody with her have so beautifully curated something as their debut show in Mumbai. I'm really privileged to be part of it. We do have a stall here, so if anybody does want to go and see what we're doing, it's right here in this hall. The brand, of course, is Janavi. I started my brand 28 years ago, the company, but the brand turns 25 next year. In my film that was made 4 years ago, so we were only 21 then. As far as I'm, with my journey, I cannot compare myself to anybody. I don't have education. I left school when I was 15, went on to work with the World Bank when I was 18, and then spent 10 years there. From there, the journey was just, I would say, anything I dreamt, I did. And 2024 made me meet the president of Pantone, not realizing she was sitting and asking me, Jyotika, what is your inspiration? My simple thing, I dream in color. And I said, what do you do? She said, I'm the president of Pantone. And that's why we're here at ID, showcasing our collaboration with Pantone. We just released the FHI colors for Spring-Summer 2025-26 in New York on the 10th of September. We released the color of the year on the 5th of December, so wait for that, in New York again, unfortunately. But we will be coming back to Delhi to really announce what we are going to have in store with Pantone for next year. We turn 25, we're going to have our own color with Pantone. And I think that for me is going to be a huge thing. We also launched our first store, which has been there for a while in Delhi, which is at the Chanakya Mall. But we reopen it as a only interior store. And with that, I'm going to show you 4 beautiful 1-minute films. My daughter is a filmmaker, and she decided to make these films about 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, but it was 2 years ago, when we were just struggling with who we are as a brand. And I didn't realize she made 4 films in color. There are 4 films. One is called Natural. The other one's called Blue. The third one is about the most vibrant color that I think exists, orange, the sun. And that's what my name gets a derivative from. And the last color is Blush, which talks about who we are as people, and it reminds me of my father, who left me when I was only 17 years old. He was only 50 then. So I don't know whether we've got the AVs on. Yes. So this is Natural.
Natural, an element of white. The wisp of breath on a cool day. It is air, it is smoke. It's what something is in the beginning. It's the feeling I tried desperately to cover up when I was young. I'd look at a blank canvas and I had to quickly and intensely splash color in it, make it bold and give it life. I had to cover up my own uncertainty of what it was. It took me a while to realize that natural is a beginning, and that beginnings require slowness, tactility, belief, and a space where simple sketches of silence transform into waves of stories. Natural, the way something already is, the way it wants to be. It is my source of warmth on the coldest of mornings, shrouded in air and smoke. Blush, because it reminds me that life is delicate. It takes me to my father and his rosy cheeks that would respond wordlessly to a compliment. To my mother and the awe with which I'd watch her get ready every morning. To my sisters whose ribbons and pigtails I tied, and I waited eagerly for them to tie mine. Blush, because of the feeling that runs through me when I look around and I see the faces of people who took a leap of faith with me 25 years ago. The ones who stayed through the mistakes, through the battles, and strengthened our flight. Blush because of its simplicity, because of how it bubbles, and how it finds its own sweet way to sparkle through us. Orange. Big, vibrant energy. An explosion of creativity. My way to bring a burning desire to life. My color of choice when I'm nervous, but I know I need to fly with confidence. Many years ago, I'd wake up my kids early in the morning, we'd grab big tubes of paint and choose a white wall to attack. Flowers, mountains, cuttlefish, stars, we'd paint with rags, brushes, and our bare hands. Wild circuses were painted under the sun. Always a big, bright, joyful orange sun. Sometimes we might behave in ways that people think are insane. But truly, how sane is it to kill a burning desire? Why be afraid to add your rhythm, your madness, your name to this world? Blue, because it reminds me of what we're made of what keeps us going. I think of the sky, of water, of the Ganga. And I think of a sun-filled study doing homework in Srinagar when I was 7. Brow furrowed, nose twitching, and fingertips pressed tightly against my favorite ink pen. But my concentration broke and I knocked over the bottle of ink and a glass of milk onto my mother's pashmina shawl. Swirling streams of blue and white everywhere. I had to do something, I had to save the heirloom, but I was frozen. The enzymes of the milk were magically absorbing the ink into the wafts and wefts of the shawl. There was no blue left. Where did it all go? A subtle chemistry took place that day in my private theatre of magic. Mysterious cashmere and blue, my starting point for a world of discovery.
Thank you for watching the 4 beautiful films made by Karishma. I tried to concise everything into the 5 minutes. I really want to thank everybody to have been here, seeing what we have created. We are a cashmere brand. Our vision with Pantone is to really take the world by storm, as we said earlier on, by defining what color does to everybody. I just want to share, there's a beautiful artist called Ricky Albenda, with whom we've also collaborated. And we'd love for you to see what Ricky does. For every minute, there are 1,044 minutes in a day. He has defined a special color for it. And if you go to our stall, you'll be able to see those colors come alive. It's digital art owned by people, and I own 719. You could own a color too. But I'd step down and allow Tanya, who's awesome, to come and take the stage. Thank you for listening.
So I'm going to start with Shama. You speak in the context of development. Design plays a very important role. And you've spoken about conservation, you've spoken about community, you've spoken about creativity. That concept is very interesting, and you've shown how you've taken this in your work. How do you see, what is your vision, for times to come? How do you see craft changing our life today?
I think that crafts or anything we do, which are smaller steps to a bigger picture. And the reason we started with what we started with is because it was growing over there, or it's going because of that. And what I've seen, that the capability of the local communities in such areas is so strong and it's so awesome that we are not capturing it properly. And I feel that institutions like ours, or there have to be a lot more like an exchange between the urban and the rural, which is not going urban but trying to retain the rural and trying to keep that balance. And I think that's where the future is. I think smaller institutions that actually work on that and work with community and environmental consciousness or sustainability, I think those are very important. I think that's the way to go forward.
Thank you. Malavika, your work celebrates your love for embroidery and craft and combines it with the talent of the craftsman, right? You're taking age-old textile work and you have taken it not just local, regional, but also global. And then taking it obviously to interiors and so many other forms. That leap has been sort of huge, right? What do you think were challenges, maybe? And then what do you see as the vision, especially when it comes to interior design?
Is this working? Yeah. Yes. Well, I think that ours is really a continuity of a certain tradition. I don't really see us as very, like that leap that you're talking about, because, hasn't craft always been international? Even before, from early man, really speaking, and then if you look at the trade routes, there's always been an interconnected world, as that wonderful book from the Met shows us. So see ourselves really as a continuity of that tradition, and of course, very much focused on hand embroidery. So, as opposed to perhaps what Shama is speaking about, we're really very inward turning towards very specific hand embroidery, bringing that and keeping that tradition going, and bringing that to newer audiences. As far as the challenges are concerned, I think that really the challenge for us is, the future. How do we ensure that craftspeople find meaning? Where do they see craft or embroidery in this case, and their own roles in the 21st century? How do we make that relevant to the practitioners of craft? What future do we give them? How do we speak about them? Our craftsmen have always been at the center and at the heart of what we do. We have celebrated their talent, their magic, their craftsmanship, their savoir-faire, and that's the way in which the future can be ensured.
Thank you. Jyotika, you've taken obviously the craft, you've taken it global, you've also taken the collaboration aspect to the next level. How has that journey been?
So for me, a little background, I don't have a degree in fashion. I just feel and dream, and I dream big. And I know wanting to become the most loved cashmere brand in the world is not very far away. We work with the best brands, whether it's Hermes, Chanel, Dior, 19 brands. And today, Mr. Modi has got the Make in India, a very important narrative. For me, it was 30 years ago when I started Janavi. I made Chanel, Dior, Hermes, everybody, and my favorite brand in the world, Ferragamo, put made in India and take away the made in France and made in Italy, because the product was made in my factory. It was about quality. It was about design that was created. Like Malavika said, they, I think, are one of the best brands, companies in the world, I would say. What François Lesage and Malavika together have created is something unparalleled. You cannot recreate something like that. But for us, it was to do what we knew best. I let every craftsman, every artisan, create from their heads. So there was no Pinterest. There was no referencing. There was actually nothing for them to think about, but create straight from their head. And I would say, okay, today we're going to make butterflies. So titlis were on a shawl, and we sold thousands of butterfly shawls. And that's how it started. So whenever we created for any of these big brands, be it Loro Piana or Hermes, we had to then take it out of our own collection. And we did that. And we kept doing that till one day my son said, Mom, that Chanel shawl has been made by you, but it carries the Chanel label. Let's push Janavi. And I said, okay. And my daughter, we talk about legacies. Who creates legacies? For me, my legacy is my artisan. It's not my children. They do support me, but it is every artisan. And like Malavika just shared, how do we keep the craft going? For me, it was not easy to tell each one of my workers, we are in a little factory in Noida, that if you tell your son or your daughter that he's the one who's going to carry the art forward. So we've just opened a school where we are teaching every craftsman's children, who's over 16, because I don't want to be under any act that we're doing child labor. But it's a school. They come in on Saturday and Sunday. And we actually inaugurate this school. We've been trying to do it for a long time on my son's 40th birthday, which is the 2nd of October. And take this forward as a thing to the government, that I think every artisan who is working in a factory, and there are millions of them. We're not China anymore, right? We're India, where everything is made by hand. It's not a machine. And even with AI coming into the picture, we still need human the human element, where people are going to create with their hands. There are no more NFTs and visual arts that will be taken forward. It will be companies like Lesage that will be creating. The clouds have opened up. They're literally blessing us all, Malavika, and that's how we will create. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to conclude with sort of one, final sort of statement. We're living in a world where there's fast art, fast fashion, fast everything. And some of us here also remember a world before the iPhone came in. Now, it was one thing with contemporary knowledge to develop a product that has changed everybody's life. My final question to each one of you is, in a country like India, where the breadth of heritage is phenomenal, we don't know, we cannot fathom it in a singular mind with a singular life. What do you think is waiting to be invented? Where do you think we go from here?
I think that design is a very large thing and it should be integrated. It should not be in isolation. It should be about quality of life for everybody and for the communities to realize that this craft or any creative projects actually enhance lives. And whether it is, I always think that when you walk on the street, what do you feel in India? There's a lot that you do feel and which is great, but there's a lot of things you don't because, I think we are losing something. And I think design has to be a lot more integrated. And I think that will become like something special for India.
Well, I think that our mission is a little bit more modest, maybe because we're very practical and we look at what we're doing. It's a very microcosm universe. So we'd like to just plow on and go on with what we do, and in that sense, ensure its continuity and its relevance in the future.
Continuity and relevance is key,
exactly.
Absolutely.
I'm going to end this by not a feminist line, but there's a beautiful artist who we've just collaborated with. We started doing a lot of recreation of art. We just did Pasita Abad. She's a Filipino artist, and we created a beautiful blanket in cashmere with her art, which was at the Walker Museum and at MoMA. We're now doing it with Andy Warhol, but the lady who's really, really after my heart is Judy Chicago. Her latest art done by actually Dior is Women Rule the World. Today's panel was supposed to be moderated not by Tanya, but by Sumant. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it because he wasn't very well, and also his parents not being well. So that's how I would end this session, by saying that we three women, and Tanya said, I need a man on this thing. And I said, no, we need you, and we need the three of us. And I'm not saying, like I said, I'm not a feminist. I believe being both genders being completely equal. But I think women rule the world. And that's the next piece of art that we are going to be bringing to the world. There's a beautiful exhibition at the Serpentine Gallery in London. And we'll do the next one in a few months. I have lots of new projects, and we'll slowly tell our story. I want to just thank Neeta ji, who's just come specially. She's an astro architect, and my brother, who I didn't know was here. Thank you, Vivek. Okay.
Thank you. I'd really like to thank you all. Thank you.